All right, so it's recording now. Audio. All right, so let's get to the bottom of this Raspberry. All right. So there's a couple of ways that we, unless like the things have crashed, you know, that they don't work. The alternatives are as follows. And you got to do this. A lot of routers, especially if you do this in your own home, you can go to your home router and it'll show the connected devices. Would you agree? You guys have tried that, right? I'm sure. All right. So, all right. So if you do this in your home, for instance, right? Let's say that this is your home. You guys are seeing the whiteboard, I assume. And the Raspberry will have two network interfaces. Use the main network interface, okay? Connect it to a port in your home router, okay? Then visit the web of your, you know, however you get to the GUI of your router. You guys see that? And go to the option there that lists connected devices. Do you guys understand? Guys in the virtual world, right? Once you get that, you should get the IP of this device, right? It's connected because it via DHCP by default, it should get an IP. You know, that should work out of the box unless there's some kind of problem. So via DHCP, it should get an IP. And then of course you're connected via your, let's say you're using, I don't know, you're using a Mac, let's say, all right, at home, or Linux or Windows PuTTY, right? Whatever it is, you also have an IP, you're both in the same network, you'll be able to ping it, right? So the first thing you, let's say that, I don't know, your home network is 10.0.1.7, and then this is gonna be 10.0.1.6. First thing you should do, ping it. Right? Wouldn't you agree? That's what you would do. Standard thing, ping. If you can ping it, what's the next thing you're going to do? SSH. The ID of the Pi should be Pi. The user ID. Or the user, sorry, not the user, the user. By default, that's usually the name, Pi. So then you'll have to say Pi at, right? Now, there's a couple of things that you can try here. You can try the password. It'll ask you for a password. By default, it should be Raspberry. Look it up online in case I get the spelling wrong here, but it should be Raspberry, okay? So that should be the password. And then here you can try then obviously 10.0.1.7 if that, oh, no, yeah. If that's the IP that was given to your machine, okay? Because via DHCP, it has gotten an IP from your router at home. If you do it here, the problem is you don't have access to the GUI interface. It would be, if we connect a Raspberry here, which I'll try to do in a second, it'll be 205, 215, something. I could ping it if I know the IP that it was given to it. Do you understand? Now, but I think if you do this like in your home environment, that might be a better alternative. Another thing that I was reading is sometimes you can do something like Pi SSH at raspberry.local. Although this, I'm not entirely sure when this is supported. Maybe it's supported when they're both connected to the, maybe in this scenario, try it. Try this, okay? Try that. So this is the, that's the idea, okay? So I'm going to grab one of these Raspberries. Can you guys play this in? Can you play it in? And then- So then I'm going to connect it to the network. Is there a port there somewhere? Mhm. Okay. So I'm going to try to start the physical machine here. All right. So all right, so I'm starting this. Just loading. Computer's loading. Trying to think how we could. Can you guys are connected to the computers? Can you try pinging raspberry.local? See if you can find that from the physical machines, because they're on the same network. All these machines are on the same network, right? So it couldn't find raspberry.local. Hmm? Try to ping raspberry.local. It doesn't. Can't think of how to get to these things. Yeah, so like I said, the lab is due. We just have to, you haven't, I mean, you're supposed to be working on this. I just, trying to think. I mean, the best thing, as I said, that I can think of is, what do you, I mean, help me out, guys. What do you think? Like what?
What's the connection on those Raspberry Pis again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. What's the connection on those Raspberry Pis again?
What do you mean the connection?
Like to get video, is it DVI or
Yeah,
HDMI?
they have HDMI. They have an HDMI port, but I was reading that to sometimes you have to like configure something on the terminal to be able to use another monitor. And the monitor is not displaying, right? So we connected. By default, it just is not. Now, if you connect this to, like if we connect it to the school network, DHCP should have given us an IP, but I don't know what it is, right? It's going to be a 205 something. They don't have default IPs. It's not. It doesn't work like that, I think. So they get assigned an IP from DHCP. So we would if we had the IP, I believe we could SSH into them, right? And what I was saying, we have the username and the password, but. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the way we set it up in the config to make it router, IP is supposed to be 192. But I think after the configuration. Afterwards, when I did it, it stayed the same. So it was by default 198.1.6. That was through the configuration. The only thing that DHCP did was external PC. What he's getting at is if they still have the
configuration saved.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that they happen to save the configuration, but also, I mean, if it's connected, if it's getting an IP, the hosting is still not resolving, so that means it's probably not getting an IP. Because otherwise, the hosting should resolve without an issue.
Mm-hmm. On here on the network. Yeah, that would have been a good one. Yeah. So I don't know what the IP for this thing is. You need another network cable?
If it's not, if he's not seeing anything on that map scanning,
Yeah.
its hosting is not resolving, it's not getting an IP.
Ryan, can you run it again once we connect this?
Hey, Professor
Yeah, go ahead.
Calix.
Yeah.
I just kind of had an idea.
Uh-huh.
Is there a way for you to get a hold of the DHCP table? Is there
From
somewhere
where?
you can go?
Well, here it would be the school. That's why I was saying if you do this at home and you can access your router at home, you might be able to find the IP because it's, if you know your network, usually it'll be like the low numbers anyways. You can almost find it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
The-
the easiest thing would probably be that, and then you can SSH into it. That's literally what we want to do. If we can find the IP for it, I think we can SSH into it. As long as it's getting the IP, which is by that's how it should work. I don't remember if these raspberries were modified at any time. I don't believe they have, so they should have the default.
Another thing that you
Mhm.
should be prepared for is by default, Raspberry does not have XP. But if it's a fresh OS install.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if these are fresh installs. So
Yeah.
but in my experience with my.
So why are the monitors not working? I mean, how would they expect people to get to these things if the monitors don't work and they don't have SSH? What is the deal with the monitor? I just don't understand that. Because if it's a thing of getting into a configuration file, well, we need SSH or Telnet or something, right? But there's got to be some monitor that lets you get into it, right? Hmm?
There's one monitor at the end that has pure HDMI.
Yeah. You have an HDMI cable?
Full size. I don't know if those take full size.
Yeah, I tried.
Does it take full size on both sides? Or is it mini?
It's,
What monitor has
The one all the way on the end. Right there with it.
That's the only cal monitor.
Yep. We plug it in. This is the one I use for my Raspberry Pi.
this cable?
No, this monitor. Yeah. But that was with a different type of Raspberry Pi. Should be right next to the display port to the left, right there. It's all right.
Try pulling power and then plugging it back in. Sometimes if you plug in display after power, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, so it doesn't switch automatically.
the only thing I can think of is
Mhm.
if it's not getting, if it wasn't getting an IP because the hosting wasn't resolving and it's not getting display, if those things, if their cards need to be reflashed because it's not booting. That could be the potential issue.
So there's no OS here?
I don't know, it could be that.
Do you guys have a little card like this on your Raspberry? Do you have it with you?
Yeah, it's up there. I can grab it real quick.
Yeah, because we could, try to,
different
yeah, swap it and just figure out if it's these cards, then maybe we can just copy your card and.
Right.
I am not going to drop the Raspberry Pi. We're gonna solve it somehow. The lab is not difficult. I think, it's not difficult. I mean, I can give you all the commands so that you can do it, but we should do this lab. I just want to get these Raspberry Pis to work. And I don't get why. So we're trying to swap out the card right now. See if that helps. All right, so those are the problems. And I'm gonna add the assignment for this. All right, so this is going to be IPTables. Homework. And this will be due on the 29th, or actually the 28th. 10 p.m. And it'll close on that Saturday. So do the week before finals. Complete the problems in the attached Word document. You can do this in a VM or Raspberry. Okay. Hit save. Now there's a link if we go to the website here. I think it's difficult to do this, but go ahead and the reason with the Raspberries was not to make this lab harder. I think you guys are totally missing the point. It was actually to make it easier. So it was actually meant to be more straightforward. And so I think you're like completely misinterpreting the whole point. Whereas here you have to do with the VM, you have to do some setup, right? But for those of you that choose to do that, you can click on that link that you should be seeing there, and it's that link, making Linux VM a router. Okay, so this was done by Mitch Burke, who was a grad student here. So just go through that video if you'd like, and that the fact that you make it into a router means that you're going to create basically the device that it would have like 2 network interfaces, but you have to do some steps to implement that, and then you should be able to do the port forwarding assignment. Does that make sense? That's up to you. Okay, otherwise, at least we know the solution now to this, thanks to these guys here. So Josh and Dakota, appreciate it. So thank you for flashing this. So we need to change the firmware on these devices. Okay. All right. So. All right. So now, as I said, let's go over the actual. I will go over some of these at least today, and basically the syntax as you would have to type it to implement this solution. So I'll start the virtual machine. And we can think about the problem. So I'll start with the easiest problem, I think, which is ICMP. Go ahead, start the VM. All right, so let's share the screen on the virtual machine. Do you have a Mac or Windows? What computer do you use? Windows. No, I mean for the link, it'll work on Mac. All right. So let's think about ICMP. So I'm going to open up a terminal here. Should all be seeing that. All right. So we want to go into IPTables. So I'm going to do, let's say, IPTables. -L forward. All right, so, and actually I'm going to make this smaller a little bit. Okay. All right, so we're just kind of feeling our way through this. Have you guys finished all the problems? No. You're still working on it. All right, so let's do sudo IPTables -n line numbers. Okay. All right, so and this is still too big. Right, there we go. So we can see basically, the table for forward. We've got numbers in there, and it's got all these different entries. We want to take a look at output. So forward is the chain, the chain basically for sending packets from one network interface to another. Then we're going to do output. And this one basically doesn't have any entries. And then we can take a look at input. Oops. -n. All right, and we can see the input chain basically with no entries either. All right, so now let's go ahead, take a look at the IP address that we have. Let's just think of a scenario here. And remember, what we're going to try to do is block ICMP. So if config 10.0.2.15, if you want to configure 2 VMs in Nat, you probably know how to do that. However, let me show you how to do that as well. I think I have, oh, I need to share this screen. All right, so just go to Linux, my system administration website for 372, and there should be a link in there, Nat Network between 2 VMs on Virtualbox. Okay, so that should allow you to configure two VMs so that they can talk to each other. All right, so at least you can test out some things from 2 VMs instead of just one. And so let's go back to the virtual machine. So now let's do ifconfig. Right, we knew that 10.0.2.15. That should be the network that configuration gives you. Okay. So now we're going to try to block ICMP packets going into some device. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's say, all right, so let's ping something. I'm just going to do 127.0.0.1 here, right? So I can reach it. Now let's go ahead and try to add. Now I ping myself, right? So to add a rule to block pings to a specific machine, we can do sudo IPTables -i, and I'm going to add this on the input. So before I add, I'm going to look at the input chain. So that one. So there's nothing there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add the rule sudo IPTables -i input, and then here we're going to say -p ICMP, that's the protocol, and then -- ICMP type, oops, type echo request. Echo request -j drop. All right, so this should add it. Okay, so now we're going to look at the table. And there it is. So I've added the rule to drop ICMP packets. Okay. On echo request. So let's see. Let's see if I can ping something. I'm trying to think, what can I ping? Oh, 888, right? So let's do 888. Okay, and I'm able to ping that because that's going out from here to the internet, right? I'm going to try to ping 127. Now I am pinging from my own machine, but I'm not able to do it anymore. Does this make sense, guys? Any questions about that? Well, I mean, I believe that's all we have to do in that problem. So it's not really that difficult. If I look at that first problem, block ICMP packets going into the router, right? So this, of course, assumes going into the router being the Raspberry. So it assumes inputs basically to it, like what we did, right? Do you guys agree? Now let's look at the other scenario. I know it's not the question, but we can take a look at the other scenario. So I tried all eights, and that one works. Do you guys see that? What do you suggest we could do to also block that one? Why do you think it's not working? What if we add this rule, but this time around we add it to the output chain? You see what I'm saying? So if I try this, I'm going to do output. Okay, there's nothing there. And then I ping all eights. That works. So what if now I go to so here, make sure, yeah. I'm just going to change this input to be output. Okay. So added the rule. I'm going to view it. The rule is there, right? And then now I'm going to proceed and ping all eights. And it doesn't work. You guys understand? So that's the idea. Unfortunately, we can't test forward because we don't have, and that's where the Raspberry allows you that more flexibility, right? To get a feel for it. Otherwise, you'll have to kind of do that workaround of configuring the VM. You guys see that's, I mean, that took me 5 minutes to do this, right? So that's literally the problem one. So that's scratched out and done. Block ICMP packets going into the router. That's number one. Any questions? Any questions in the virtual? All right. So let's take a look at something else. So the ping failed after the rules were implemented. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead. Now we want to delete the rules, of course, so that they don't cause problems. So that's why you should look at what it looks like before you add a rule. So in this case, we added a rule to input, if I remember correctly. There it is. Input, we added the ICMP. That's number one. So now you can just go ahead and do sudo IPTables -d input 1, right? So I'm just by index, I'm going to remove that entry. And now if I do line numbers, it's gone. You see that? So this was for input. So once again, if I ping 127.0.0.1, let me take out the output as well. I'm going to remove this one. This should be sudo IPTables -d output 1 as well. Okay, so that should be gone. Okay, so now, yeah, there it is. So I can now ping. Okay, and also should be able to ping all eights. There you go. So that can be pinged as well. All right. So that's those first two. Any questions on that one? Nope. All right. So let's take a look at the next one then. So I'm going to do block SSH request to, let's say, some IP address on the internet. We need to have an SSH server for this. So let me see, SSH. I don't know that I still have the server. So let's.
We tried it.
Mhm.
We could ping it, but we couldn't.
But does it give you the prompt to SSH? Didn't let you. Okay, let's see. 184. No. 184, 168. So let me try it. SSH 184 dot 168.26 dot 138. Okay. That's what you got. Well, I'll start my other VM then, I guess. Did you guys do it with some other thing?
We just didn't do it. They don't want us.
You haven't done it. Okay, so let's do it then. So for this one, I'll start the second virtual machine that I have on here. Okay, so as I said, you can establish two VMs here. You'll need an original and a clone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mean from here outside? Okay. Yeah, so let's just try this scenario. With the Raspberry Pi, you could do two laptops on bridge mode and then just put them on both sides. Yeah, just do it. Just do it like this. So let's go through it. So I have two VMs here. I'm going to open up the terminal. All right, so if I do ifconfig on this one, this is 10.0.2.4. Ten 0.2.4 is one VM. Okay, and then the other one. Ten 0.2.15, according to this. So from here, I'm going to try to ping 10.0.2.4 Okay, and I can ping it. Now I'm gonna go to the other one. And I'm gonna try to ping 10.0.2.15. Okay, so I can ping, so far. Ping, now I'm going to enable SSH. Okay, so according to this, it's listening on port 22. I'm gonna SSH into 10.0.2.15. All right, good. So from 10.0.2.4, I can do that. So I should be now in the other one. So if I do ifconfig 10.0.2.15, right? I'm in that machine. I'm gonna exit. Now ifconfig 10.0.2.4, right? So now the question is block SSH requests to a specific IP address, right? So from here, I went to 10.0.2.15. Okay. So we have to, if the beauty of this on the Raspberry is that you would put this on which chain? You're going from the inside network to the outside, right? So you would put it in the forward chain. That's what you can't really see here in this, because we're not forwarding. So in this example, but we can do it in a different way. So here, if you're doing it with 2 VMs, we need to add a rule. So let's think about it. We could put it on. So let's try output. So we're going from here, right, to the other machine. So let's think about that one. So this is config. All right, so I'm gonna view the output chain. Oh, this is the other. All right, so let's do the command sudo IPTables -l output -n line numbers. Okay, so there's nothing here. Now I'm going to add a rule. So what would the rule be? Sudo IPTables -i, since we don't have any, the index doesn't really matter. Output. What's the protocol? TCP, right? So -p TCP --destination port, and that would be what? 22, right? So port 22. And then -j drop. Okay, so that rule took it. So now I look at output. There's the rule. So now I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same thing I did before, SSH. And it didn't go, correct? And that just means that the rule is not letting it through. Any questions? Now, as I said, if this was going through the Raspberry from the inside network to the outside network, which is the original intention of it, this would go on the forward chain. Another way would be to block SSH at the input, right? So you could do it, you could write this rule, sudo IP, I will stop this. You could basically write sudo IPTables I input TCP, where destination port is 22, but you put it on the other machine because it's going to refer to packets coming to it. You guys see that? That's it. Don't forget, always remove the rules just in case. So we're going to go ahead and delete it. Sudo IPTables -d, and that was 1, right? So output okay. So now if you look at line numbers, you can see it's gone. SSH again, and it works. And now I can do ifconfig. And, you know, I'm there. Oops. Okay. Now I do ifconfig. And 024. All right, so that's, if we go now to the, I'm sharing this. So now if we go to the document, block SSH request to this or other from inside network. So what I did is fine. Any questions on number 2? Okay. Port forwarding, so that one does require that NAT setup, or you can try the Raspberry Pi. Which other one we can do? All right, so HTTP traffic going from A by IP address. So that would be this one, right? Number 4, block HTTP traffic. HTTP traffic, right? So that's port 80 going from A to or other by IP address. All right, so let's try. I'm going to go to the VM. And for this one, let's try something else. So I'm going to do clear here. I'm going to ping, let's say, Facebook. .com. Okay. In particular, I pinged them to get the IP address. So here it says it's 157.240.2.35. Okay. So now, what happens if we type that IP address in the browser? What do you guys think? It shouldn't work if I type that IP on an address. All right, so I've got Facebook there. All right. So now by IP address, right? So now let's think about again the rule. So where are we going to put this rule now? What do you guys think? So what do you guys think? Output, right? In this case, because it's going from this machine to Facebook. All right, so I'm going to go ahead again. I check that there's nothing on there. Okay, so I'm going to do the rule sudo IPTables -I, oops, uppercase I, and it's going to be output -P. And now what? What protocol? TCP -TCP -D for destination, correct? And the IP address is 157.240.2.35. So, 35. So the IP that we just got from pinging them. And now what else? Well, definitely -J drop, right? So -J. Port 80. So destination -- port. And then here now, does the browser use 80 or 443 nowadays? All right. Yeah, you're right. But do they respond though? Yeah, that's true. That's a good catch. So let's see what happens if we enter that. So, and then other things that we could do now, just so that you know, FYI, you could do -M state, okay, and then specify --state, and then you can look even further with more fine grain, for instance, at several options like new for a new connection, and I think that should be uppercase, new, but also established. Okay, so with no spaces. I added a space. Yeah. It doesn't like it, huh? So then it only accepts 443. Rubber. So let's change it to 443. All right, so we're gonna go over here. 443, right? That's HTTPS as far as I know. All right. It took the rule, so that's a good thing. It's on the output. We've got it in there now. So now I'm gonna go ahead and refresh. Is it thinking? Does that mean that it's thinking? A new tab? New private window. Okay, let's try that one. 157, 240, 235. And it's not going there. So the cache, and we can overcome the cache with this. So we've got the rule, right, in there. Let's give it a minute there. I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna try dash VL. Oh, yeah, I'm using it twice, aren't I? Okay. So it would be. And if you notice, what's nice about this is it gives us the hit count. Do you guys see that? So that way is another way that you can corroborate if your rules are hitting or not. Okay, guys? So we'll repeat this. Oh, I can take it. Well, let's see. Did it ever? So it never got there, right? So now I'm going to go to the VM here. I'm going to take out that rule. Okay. Here it is. Take it out. So now, so it gets to Facebook. You guys see that? That make sense? Any questions? So that should complete. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah. It's the same. I mean, it's the same logic. They're all basically based on the same idea. Access control is, they have their own syntax, right? Which is the Cisco syntax. And this is IPTables on Linux. But at the end of the day, they're both looking at packets pretty much in a similar way. This is why I wanted you to use the Raspberry, because the Raspberry then simulates the actual router or firewall with two interfaces. It's the same idea, but different. This is Linux. This is general open source. You can do more with it versus the limited firmware where the more services you want, the more you pay, right? So, does that answer your question? All right, so we did this one as well, which is the so that's number 4. Any questions on number 4? Make sense? All right, good. So let's see. We've got left a few more. All right, so we've done traffic to P. And then we've deleted the rule. All right, so the next one would be the Telnet rule. Okay, so we're out of time, I guess. So we'll finish, so we still can finish some of these on Thursday. Okay, so we'll go over these, but at least you have a few of the rules now that you can complete, okay? All right, as I said, if you want to work on the Raspberry Pi, you kind of know how to do that now. Otherwise, just complete these on the virtual machine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I'm going to stop